Good evening, everyone. Adequate notice of this meeting is provided by sending such notice to the Asbury Park Press, the Middletown Patch, and the Middletown Township Public School District website, and the posting of such notice at the August and Meyer Administrative Offices in each elementary, middle, and secondary school district. Roll call.
Mrs. Kennedy?
Here.
Mrs. Farley?
Here.
Mr. Fitzgerald?
Here.
Mr. Heffernan?
Here.
Mrs. Diniz?
Here.
Mr. Toth?
Here.
Mrs. Wright?
Here.
Mr. Vago?
Here.
Mr.
Here. And now your motion for executive session for matters of HIV, legal matters, and personal matters.
Second.
Favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Move on. Good evening, everyone. Adequate notice for this meeting was provided by sending such notice to the Asbury Park Press, the Middletown Patch, and the Middletown Township Public School District website, and the posting of such notice of the Augustine Minor Administrative Offices in each elementary, middle, and secondary school district. Roll call.
Mrs. Kennedy?
Here.
Mrs. Farley? Here. Mr. Fitzgerald?
Here.
Mr. Heffernan,
Here.
Mrs. Venus? Here. Mr. Toth? Mrs. Wright?
Here.
Mrs. Tobacco? Here. Mr. Capone?
Here.
Ms. Allen? Here. Mr. Moore?
Please stand for the pledge.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Amen. Listen, we know there's a lot of people here and everybody wants to say something, but this meeting has to remain orderly. If there's any yelling out or disturbances, you will be warned once. If you continue, you will be removed.
We're now moving on to our student recognition of Mrs. Kaylee Kalam. I want to say, Kaylee, it's been a pleasure knowing you. It's been a pleasure you being here for the last 10 months, and we're grateful for all that you've contributed to this board. I want to say thank you and give you this recognition, which is a certification recognition presented to you from the Middletown High School South 2023 school year, commending your contribution and advocacy for our school community. Thank you very much. Okay, we'll move on to 8A, 12A, 1 and 2, which is a resolution accepting the resignation letter of Mary Ellen Walker and thanking Mrs. Walker for years of service to the Middletown Township Board of Education, and also a resolution appointing Mrs. Jessica Alphone as acting superintendent, replacing Mary Ellen Walker on administrative leave through December 31st, 2023.
Second.
Roll call.
Mrs. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mrs. Farley?
Yes.
Mr. Fitzgerald?
Yes.
Mr. Heffernan,
Yes.
Mrs. Venus? Yes. Mr. Toth?
Yes.
Mrs. Wright?
Yes.
Mrs. Tobacco?
Yes.
Mr. Capone?
Yes. We also want to say we are extraordinarily grateful for Mrs. Walker's leadership during an extraordinary difficult time here in Middletown. The board and senior leadership are hyper-focused on not only ensuring the continuity, but continuing to move the district forward. The board put forth Mrs. Alphone, who currently serves as assistant superintendent, for consideration as acting superintendent. And prior to serving the Middletown Township School District, at her capacity, Mrs. Alphone was the prior superintendent of Monmouth Beach. Mrs. Walker will continue through December 31st to help provide transitional support for the district. Thank you very much for your service and your news here. Thank you, Mayor. Okay, we're going to move on to our committee reports. Curriculum and instruction, Mrs. Farley and Mrs. Alphone.
Thank you. Yeah, we had a meeting earlier in the month. Just a couple of things of note for the board. The district has decided to use the iReady diagnostic assessment tool for next year. So I think you'll see that contract on the agenda for vote tonight. We are going to be doing reading pilots at Harmony and Fairview of the Magnetic Reading Foundations program. We're also going to be rolling out Civil 8 for all elementary schools in replacement of F&P. There are a couple of curricula on the agenda for approval tonight. This is the ELA grade 6 through 8. And I think that covers it.
Very good, thank you very much, Mrs. Farley. Moving on to student services, Mr. Tuttle.
Thank you. Yes, we also met on June 8th as well, special services. Most noteworthy item, I think we're excited on the agenda tonight is the approval of the hiring of a teacher of the deaf. for the district. That's funded with IDEA grant money, so there's no effect on the operations budget right now. It'll go a long way in preventing out-of-district placements and saves a lot of money, and obviously a great service to have for us now. And we also just discussed the progress in the mental health and behavioral programs at Ocean Ave and Lincroft. Both went well this first year, and looking forward to maximizing those in the future to minimize district placements and ensuring we're providing the least restrictive environment possible. Highlights program.
Thank you, Mr. Tull. Moving on to Finance and Facilities, Mrs. Doherty.
Our committee met on June 12th. As far as facilities go, we reviewed a proposal for a facilities master plan that was reviewed with the committee by Spiesel Associates, and we talked about the scope of work that would encompass, and we are also working with them to fine-tune that and maybe cut down the scope of it, but we are looking to hopefully have a proposal for the board to consider at the July meeting for that proposal. We also talked about the high school north field and track project, which has been delayed due to a protest on the bids that was filed. We did get information today. There was a hearing this morning or early this afternoon. The judge did hear the arguments related to the merit of the case, but has not made a decision at this point, but did commit to both attorneys that the decision would be rendered by the end of the month. So at that point in time, we will have to see what the decision is and then see what course of action we would take from that point. We also talked about the HVAC work scheduled at Bay Shore and High School South. Mr. Nassar, our facilities director, informed the committee that in addition to the work that was already scheduled at Bay Shore, we're going to be able to get a head start on the work that was awarded for High School South because the equipment arrived sooner than what we anticipated, so that was good news. We also have several items under finance on the voting agenda. Most notable is our renewal of our property casualty and workers' compensation coverage for next year. We will be remaining with the diploma GIF for another 3 years. There is a resolution on the agenda, and we will be renewing our coverage for those areas for 23-24. Are there any other questions?
Thank you. Moving on to policy, Mrs. Tobacco.
Committee did not meet this month, but tonight we will be voting on 3 policies on the second reading, policy number 4217, 4217, and 5756.
Thank you very much, Mr. Okay, we're now going to open the microphone up for public comment. Our policy normally allows for 30 minutes maximum. Seeing that many stakeholders that are here tonight, this evening, we're going to make it 1 hour. We're going to double the allotted time. As usual, it'll be 3 minutes per person. And we ask everybody for please be respectful when people are talking, respectful for everyone. I'm not going to give a warning. If anybody is disruptive, they will be asked to leave immediately.
I'm going to put a sign-up sheet on the podium, and if you could just please leave us your name and address so that we will have that for the record, I would appreciate it.
And please, it's just very important to stick to the 3 minutes so we can let as many people as possible.
Hi, just please state your name and address for the record.
Atlantic Highlands. So, hello, my name is.
Just your address for the record and your full name. Thank you.
Alexandra Bocoletta, 115.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Alexandra Bocoletta. I'm 13 years old and transgender
transgender students. I think this new policy you're trying to pass is completely disrespectful to not only the kids, but the parents as well. Me and many other trans students try our best in school and want to be successful in life, but this policy can damage trans kids' probabilities of being successful in the future, especially closeted kids. What you are trying to do is harming innocent and young children just because these children identify as the opposite gender. This is dangerous to their mental health. There are at least 125 kids that identify as transgender in the Middletown School District. 75 of these kids have considered suicide. With the way they are being treated, this will rise. The money that you're putting into this policy could be used for teachers' pay and school curricular activities. This isn't just affecting trans kids, this is affecting all students. So finally, I would just like to ask one question. What have these kids done to deserve such terrible treatment?
Hello, my name is Sloan Timpson, and I reside in Atlantic Highlands, New Jersey. As you leave school and move on to the next chapter in your life, I encourage you to remain true to yourself. Never lose sight of your goals, and most importantly, never give up, said Mr. Capone. The road ahead may not always be smooth, but with determination, courage, and wisdom, you will overcome any obstacle that stands in your way. That's what I heard at graduation this year. And honestly, I can't believe you were talking to all students, knowing the policy that you had revised, because right now, the obstacles that stand in the way of your transgender students is you. This community has stayed true to themselves. They have had the real courage it takes to walk through those doors every day, despite whispers and bullying. The goals of these students is to be able to learn in an environment without threat of being exposed and opened up to mental and physical abuse that could be brought upon them by your harmful policy changes. Perhaps you forgot the code of ethics when you took this job and needed to be reminded. The board member will make decisions in terms of the educational welfare of children and seek to develop and maintain public schools that meet the individual needs of all children, regardless of their ability, race, creed, sex, or social standing. Perhaps you also forgot when Middletown was on the wrong side back in 2014, when a child at Thorne Middle School came back from summer vacation dressed as the opposite gender she was assigned at birth. Middletown Board of Education refused to let her back in school dressed in a skirt. There was a legal battle, and Middletown lost not only money, but was seen nationally as the school who discriminated against a child who wanted to live authentically as herself. Don't make this mistake again and put Middletown students back in the spotlight for such a hateful and disgusting policy. You will only end up using taxpayers' money to wage the war of a few citizens that have no real interest in the welfare and safety of all of Middletown students. You will also be known as the school district who violated our students' civil rights under Title IX. The Department's Office for Civil Rights states, Title IX sex discrimination prohibition extends to claims of discrimination based on gender identity or failure to conform to stereotypical notions of masculinity and femininity. And the OCR accepts such complaints for investigation. So if this policy passes tonight, Middletown Board of Education will be in for a fight, and I will take the advice Mr. Capone gave to our graduates this year. I will stay true to myself. And with determination and courage, I will never give up on making sure this policy never harms our children.
I'm Maddie Boylan. I live in Atlantic Highlands on 34 Prospect Circle. I'm 18 and a high school senior. I graduate tomorrow, and I'm also a transgender woman. I socially transitioned at 10 years old, and it had been a long time coming, not an overnight decision. I was consistent, persistent, and insistent. That is what doctors look for in trans people. Rather than removing important terminology from the transgender student policy, You should study it, because you must not know any actual trans kids if you think coming out to a trusted adult at school is silly as child's play. I have known who I was from very early on, and was lucky to be supported at home, but many kids are not. I am disgusted that I have to speak at yet another board meeting because trans students' rights and privacy are being put in danger. You clearly don't understand the amount of harm you are putting young trans students in with this proposed policy change. Outing students to their parents without knowing the consequences they could face at home is absolutely evil and sinister. You have been provided guidance from the state not to do this, and you supposedly want a safe environment and overall safety for your students, but you don't know how important affirming a person's gender identity is to their emotional health. Just like some kids go to school to be fed, some go to feel safe and supported, and you're threatening to rip that away because some parents are afraid their children will randomly decide to transition at school. Parents who are pushing for this change, I have a suggestion for you. Look inward. If your children can't talk to you about their identities, there is a reason for that. This Board of Education's job is to support the education of the children of Middletown, not pander to a group of ignorant parents who are making a problem where one doesn't exist in the first place. You are harming the children who need this policy to survive. Let us live. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Nim Boudreau, and I reside in Lincroft, New Jersey. So as said before, my name is Nim Boudreau. I am a recent graduate of Middletown South and a Middletown resident, and I got my name changed just last year in the system. I am a non-binary student who is not looking towards medically transitioning as part of my personal journey, meaning that socially transitioning is something incredibly important to me. I'm thankful to have been blessed with a very supportive mother who accepts me as I am, but not everyone is as lucky as I am. What many people don't understand is that the concept of socially transitioning is a huge and important step for trans people such as myself. To be able to identify with a name that you truly believe is your own is something so gratifying, and is a lot of people's first steps in their transitions. What you're looking to put in place is going to gatekeep said step only to students whose parents are supportive and aware of their child's transition. Taking away the safe space that is Middletown schools is going to ruin lives. Transitioning, whether it is socially or medically, has saved so many transgender people's and students' lives, and if you take that opportunity away, there will be blood on your hands.
Whoa.
With the passing of this law, you will be outing students and putting them in danger of emotional or even physical abuse at the hands of their parents, or outright keeping them in the closet and keeping them from evolving into the beautiful person that they truly are. I am begging you all to decide against this unjust law and to keep your beloved students safe. Trans people are people, just like how you or anyone else in this room is, and deserve to be safe and protected just as much as any other student. Do the smart thing. Thank you and good night.
Hi, my name is Curtis Entwistle. I reside in Middletown, New Jersey. I'm a former student of Middletown High School South. I just graduated a few days ago, and I'm also a transgender man. I came out when I was 13 in middle school and had the blessing of having accepting parents that let me medically transition at 13, which saved my life. While I've had my bumps in the road with transitioning from peers now and then, my treatment from Middletown teachers and staff from the time I came out in middle school has always been that of supportive and accepting in my personal experience. I would like to continue to know that the school district I have now graduated from will do what's best for future trans students, but this policy makes me think otherwise. By outing students to their family, you are doing them a huge disservice for their emotional, mental, physical well-being and safety. You could be subjecting them to physical or emotional abuse from unsupportive parents, and regardless of whether the parents are accepting or not, being stripped away of coming out on your own terms to who you want and when you want is emotionally distressing and traumatizing in and of itself. Another concern I have with this policy is the fact that it targets transgender people. If a kid named, let's just say like Christopher, wants to go by Chris or any other nickname, would you also notify their parents that they are making a public name change request? If not, I feel that this policy is most definitely discriminatory. Like I said before, I would like to think the school district I grew up in would support trans kids who are in the same situation I was in. This policy is pointless and just a blatant attack on transgender people. It tries to erase us by making kids feel too afraid to come out. I ask you to please know that we trans people are just people, and that trans kids are just kids who are trying to figure themselves out, and they should be able to do that with the support and on their own terms how they would like, and with that, protect trans kids.
You can stand up. Hello, my name is Sarah Kahn, and I thank you for the opportunity. I'd actually like to talk about Tony Alfano, one of our teachers. I've been in the school district for 14 years. Both my kids attended Wingcroft School. We're a very small community. We're extremely tight-knit. We don't have 35 and 36 and a lot of other roads going through us. In addition to COVID, we've helped each other through many lows and fortunately many, many highs. Our teachers know our families, whether they have them in class or not. Case in point, my older son never had Mrs. Alfano in the 5 years that he was at Wingcroft, 6 years he was at Wingcroft School. Yet, when my younger son, Dominic, had Mrs. Alfano, she knew almost everything about him. Dominic dreaded school up to 4th grade, dreaded school. Yet, he did a complete 360 once he was in Mrs. Alfano's class. He's going to be a junior at South this year. He never shed a tear in the 12 years, or going on 12 years, that he was going to school, except his last day of school in 4th grade at Wingcroft School. He actually cried so much on his last day of 4th grade that Mrs. Alfano had to call me in New York and let me know. Not only that, she suggested that I get on the bus and get home. For weeks during that summer, he asked me when we could take Mrs. Alfano to lunch. He made her a rainbow, and Mrs. Alfano's promised him that she would hang it in the classroom every single year. And to talk about the tight knit that we have, many students who are at Wingcroft School have come back to Dominic and said that Mrs. Alfano has talked about the rainbow that is in the school and how important it is to her and the success of her students. Here's another example of the impact that Mrs. Alfano has. On Friday, all of you know, South graduated. Over 22 students went back to visit their Wingcroft teachers. There was a list of 5 teachers that they wanted to see, and Mrs. Alfano was on that list. So it goes beyond elementary. So I'm sure you can say to me, and some of you have in my emails, you know what, Terry, it's wonderful that such an incredible teacher such as Mrs. Alfano will be at Ocean Ave School. I get it, but here's what I say. What about Wingcroft School? We have open positions at Wingcroft School. Shouldn't we be filling them with our own? Someone that knows our families has been through all the heartaches and all the triumphs. I understand that 2 new people are being brought in, and Mrs. Alfano is being involuntarily booted out. To us, and
Thank you. It's been 3 minutes.
Actually, I live in Wingcroft, I moved to South, my youngest one just graduated from South. I just wanted to, on behalf of all of us here, we really are upset about what's happening with Mrs. Alfano. You know, school is not a business. Its teachers are not another number, and what teachers do, they build a community. And these children look forward to seeing a familiar face, and it's all about consistency and what matters. This is such an unnecessary change. There are openings in in Wingcroft School, so I don't understand what the issue is that she decided to change from 3rd grade to 1st grade because there was an opening. So why take someone out that has been in the district for 23 years, has been a teacher for almost 14 or going on 14 years in Wingcroft, has the ability to sub for a principal. She might have all these credentials, and it's wonderful that my email said, oh, well, it would be good that she's a great teacher at another school in Ocean Ave. But what about Wingcroft? There's She is an amazing, amazing teacher, and I really take this to heart. My son has had her, both my boys had her. And you know, when I look at the code of ethics, I just want to read it to the board. And it's the third one. And it says, I will confine my board action to policy making, planning, and appraisal, and I will help to frame policy plans only after the board has consulted those who will be affected by them. Well, when I read that, words punitive, retribution, targeting, bullying, that's the words that came to mind when I read this. She was not told until just recently that there's a jeopardy of her position at Lincroft. I mean, it's just unbelievable. You know, the world is changing and, you know, you have to accept change, but this is a very unnecessary change. And I really, our hearts go out to her, and that's why we're all here. And half of us, all our kids are graduated or in college. So it's really upsetting that we don't have that opportunity, that she doesn't have that opportunity to really keep her job. So with the code of ethics, really, that's something that I really would like for the administrator, the Board of Ed to really take it off the table and to really consider what a great teacher she is. It's just really disheartening, and it's very upsetting. And I think going forward, it's like, as taxpayers, what's happening? It doesn't make sense.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
My name is Michael Simonello, and I'm from Lincroft. I'll be speaking about Mrs. Alfano. Transferring Mrs. Alfano is a mistake. As you already know, she's been teaching at Lincroft Elementary for 13 years and has been a pillar of our community for longer. Not only has she been a phenomenal teacher, but more importantly, she's been a role model to students. Before I'm shot down with the apathetic argument that she will be the same phenomenal teacher at another school, let me explain why she must remain at Lincroft. Lincroft Elementary has been Mrs. Alfano's home for more than a decade. When I walked back into that school for the first time in years last week, I didn't recognize 90% of the name tags on the wall. Mrs. Alfano's commitment to the school has been a blessing for hundreds of young students and should continue to be for hundreds more. I can't thank her enough for what she has done for me, and I know many others feel the same way. Transferring her out of Lincroft Elementary would be a disservice to the Lincroft community. I understand you did not make this decision, but I know you have the ability to overturn it. And why? Why is she being moved if there are open positions at the school? While you don't owe me an answer to this question, you certainly owe Mrs. Alfano one. And if you can't answer this question, then you need to seriously reconsider the decision. Regardless of the rationale, Mrs. Alfano has given so much of herself to the district, the least we can do is give something back to her. Let's not upend her life for no logical reason, and let's not take away her home and her family. Let's show some humanity. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Perry Woodview. I live in Lincroft. I graduated from Middletown South in 2022, and I identify as transgender. I was given the opportunity to come out my senior year to all of my teachers and socially transition without the fear of my parents finding out. Luckily, I was able to gain confidence and come out to them on my own terms, and I'm blessed with an accepting family. That is not the case for everybody, and there is no reason why any child should go to school fearful that if they share their true self, they will be hurt in their home lives. I want to ask, is anybody here transgender? Do any of you, do any members of the board have a transgender child? All right, you need to listen to trans people, and you need to listen to your transgender students and transgender people in Middletown and New Jersey when they say to you that you are putting us in danger. It is not your place to decide whether somebody is safe at home or not. It is up to us. And by ignoring that, you are putting so many lives in jeopardy. You are putting
the entire expression of people in jeopardy. And that is completely unjust and un-American. Thank you. I currently live in Red Bank, but I raised my children in Middletown, so they attended the Middletown schools. I'm also a gender therapist. I work closely with adolescent children who are exploring their gender identity. So I see people that are identifying as transgender or non-binary, agender, and I get extensive training from the World Professional Association for Transgender Health every year. In fact, our guidelines are about 260 pages long because of all the research that's included in them. But the point is the name thing here today, right? 10 years ago, when there were no guidelines and kids came out as transgender, they had to immediately get their names legally changed, by a judge in order to have their name changed at school. And what happened was when the Board of Ed came out with all of the guidelines, and they said that the schools should honor their names and they should, affirm them at school, the kids didn't have to do that anymore. So it gave them time. They gave them time to really see if they are transgender, to kind of work through all their feelings, gave them a safe space to try out names and pronouns. And what's going to happen now, and so a lot of the students that I see, they haven't changed their names legally because they haven't had to, right? So that they're being honored at school and they're being affirmed for who they are without having to do that yet. They do get their name changed if they do decide, in the end that they are transgender, usually before they go to college. The thing is, we don't want to rush them, right? We want them to have time to kind of live as themselves and to make sure that this is really the right decision for them, and the name thing is important for that. Also, a lot of the reasons that kids don't tell their parents right away is because their parents are their most important people in their lives. It's not uncommon for kids to tell everyone else in their life but their parents until the very last minute because they don't want to lose that relationship. It's very important to them. So having them able to come out of school, kind of try it on, gain their confidence, get, confident in order to talk to their parents about it is so important for them. Since the guidelines were out affirming the kids, there's been such a change in the schools. Like the kids really feel good about themselves. They feel like they can explore their gender, without risk of losing the love of their parents. And obviously, since I'm a therapist, the kids I see have all told their parents because their parents bring them to me. But I know that there's many kids that don't feel like they can do it yet. So I would ask that you reconsider and maybe talk to some other gender therapists about what we're seeing out there and why this is important for the kids to have their own space and to have some time.
Thank you.
Okay.
Good evening. I am Steve Moulis, teacher and gender sexuality advisor at High School South and secretary of the MTPS and the 2022-23 NJA Equality Champion Award winner. I am speaking to you today on behalf of those who cannot, be it out of fear of retribution for their beliefs or for who they are as individuals. We all desire the same thing, the safety and security of our students and the upholding of the integrity of the professional responsibilities of our staff. And while we want to promote parental or caregiver involvement, we must also remember that not every child comes from a safe and supportive environment. Additionally, every individual is entitled to civil rights. I feel compelled to speak to you tonight because enacting this policy violates those civil rights and actually undermines our aim as educators who are tasked with providing a safe space for the children of our community, and we will be prohibited from doing so accordingly. Unless you are in the shoes of an LGBTQIA+ student, you cannot appreciate the immense feeling of anxiety associated with coming out to anyone, let alone their family. So what we are doing by enacting this policy is creating a culture of distrust. Distrust of the parent or caregiver by the child, and distrust of the school official by the student. That helps no one. The students come out to us as trusted confidants to help them navigate challenging questions or situations. That would no longer be the case. As I said before, not every home is a safe space. So then what we would be doing is So who would then be guiding our community's children? Not us, and that would be your fault. At its core, this policy is discriminatory. We are bound by New Jersey's law against discrimination to equitably protect our students. Passing a policy that requires teachers to follow rules and guidelines only for one specific group of students is in violation of anti-discrimination laws and infringes upon the civil rights of individuals. This is the textbook case of disparate impact versus disparate intent. In short, disparate impact refers to the unintended discriminatory outcomes of outing transgender students, like emotional or physical harm. Disparate intent pertains to the deliberate act of revealing their gender identity without their consent and with harmful intentions which this policy does. This is the measure of discrimination, and if we pass this policy, we are most definitely the textbook definition of violation, and we would be violating the civil rights of a protected class of individuals. I would like to address the importance of consistency in our values and the actions when it comes to embracing diversity and promoting inclusivity. It is imperative that we reflect upon our own beliefs and behaviors to ensure that we are not inadvertently sending mixed messages. It is crucial that we extend...
I'd like to make the record that board leadership did reach out to union leadership over a month ago to have a discussion regarding this policy, and there was no follow-up on that.
My name is Elizabeth Arrett. I am a non-binary resident and taxpayer here in Middletown. I'm also a former graduate of Middletown Public Schools, starting first in kindergarten at New Monmouth and finally graduating from North in 2007. I am now a civil rights attorney specializing in advocacy on behalf of transgender individuals. First, I will finish Mr. Kamulis' speech. It is crucial that we extend our support and acceptance to all queer students, creating an environment through action where they feel safe and valued. It is essential to bridge the gap between our personal relationships and our commitment to equality, standing united as allies for all members of the LGBTQ community. Mr. Capone, at graduation, you spoke about the importance of setting an example for others. I challenge you to truly consider the action of you and the board taken here. And now, in my words, I'm going to skip to the point. This policy is unconstitutional under both the US and New Jersey constitutions. This policy violates federal Title IX protections for transgender students and the New Jersey law against discrimination. Given the limited time afforded to speak, I'm going to refrain from listing the numerous other laws we'll be violating if we pass this, but I want to make it clear. This policy is unequivocally illegal, and if you pass it, the district will be sued. The state of New Jersey has made it clear that they will be challenging this policy if it's passed. In fact, the New Jersey Attorney General sued Hanover School District in May for passing a very similar policy. I can tell you as a lawyer who has participated in this kind of litigation multiple times, it is expensive. You are talking about hundreds of hours at an average of $330 an hour in attorney time. You are going to cost the districts hundreds of thousands of dollars that could be used to actually educate and protect all Middletown students. And while it's important to have a protection in place for trans students who may face abuse from their parents if outed, as a former child abuse and neglect attorney, I can tell you that it is not enough. A child often faces dozens, if not hundreds, of instances of abuse from a parent before any reports are made. What you have chosen to do today amounts to abhorrent violence against the students you are sworn to protect. School is, or is supposed to be, a safe haven for students. By passing this policy today, you have removed that place of safety, and you will instead make this school a place of harm. And harm will occur if you do this. Less than a third of transgender and non-binary students live in a home that is gender affirming. When trans youth are rejected by their parents, they are at least 8 times more likely to attempt suicide than other students. But when those same students have access to affirming spaces, safe spaces, their suicide rates drastically decrease. You are going to be taking away the safe space if you pass this policy here. And you will be making a decision to harm students. You will be putting students in harm's way. I pray that the transgender and non-binary students in Middletown are able to hold strong in the face
Thank you,
of
it's been 3 minutes. Thank you, Before we run everyone, exceeding your allotted time is just taking time away from someone.
My name is Francesca Stella. I'm living River Plaza area of Middletown. As a recently graduated student of Middletown High School South, I've been reflecting on many of the parts of my school experience that impacted me, and I can't help but think of all the important teachers I had. These teachers went out of their way to provide us with a proper education and prepare us for the world. The deep conversations that my teacher and I have shared are what really resonate. Many of my teachers share details about their lives, their families, and their identities, and I share the same with them. This policy change that you are trying to pass removes all of the trust students place in their teachers. From minuscule stories of our daily lives to important parts of identity, we share these things with our teachers because we trust them and respect them, and we expect the same in return. No longer will students feel that they can be truly themselves in front of their teachers. If students are not telling their parents, but instead choose to tell a teacher that they are transgender, have a preferred name, or another part of their identity that they choose to share, they're doing so for a reason. Instead of having a staff member they trust, they will now be outed to family members who may not be supportive, and these students may no longer have a safe space. Transgender students and other students in the LGBTQ+ community have always existed, so why this change? Why now? We can see now more than ever that there is an immense amount of support for this community and an immense amount of opposition to your discriminatory policy changes. 1,500+ signatures on a petition I started to raise a pride flag and increase inclusivity in Middletown, 1,600+ signatures on a petition started by Middletown North Junior to oppose this policy change, and even the group of people here tonight are just a few examples that your policy will hurt many and impact everyone. While I'm up here, I also just wanted to thank you for the generous scholarship for my involvement in the GSA, which is a necessary safe space for LGBTQ+ students and allies. I'm very grateful for that scholarship, but I can't help but see the irony. Please continue to keep children safe and put children first. Thank you.
Sorry. Been a long week of work. I'm over in Lincroft. I don't know Miss Alfano, but she sounds wonderful.
Your name for the record, I'm sorry. Your name and address for the record.
Oh, Anthony, I'm in Lincroft, over in Lincroft. Saying, I don't know Miss Alfano, but she sounds pretty wonderful. My kids are in Lincroft Elementary School right now. I'm sorry, I have 4 boys. They're all young, and they're all, 2 of them are in Lincroft right now. I didn't have time to write a speech or anything like that. Again, I have 4 boys that are very young, and it's been a long week. I'm sorry that some of the people in this room feel that parents should be left out of the conversation. I saw Camulus up here speaking, and I saw somebody else come up and take over his speech. I don't want his words coming out of my kid's mouth. I don't need him telling my kids what to say. The gender therapist up here, she said the parents are the most important people in the kids' lives. I'm sorry if some of you feel that you can't tell your parents what's going on in your life. I'm sorry for that. I heard the abuse stories. That's terrible. That's a terrible thing. Like I said, I have 4 boys, and one of them was thinking about becoming a girl. I wanted them to find me. Those are the people that's who I wanted. That's who I would want to know, so I could give them the help that they need, so I can support them. If they're telling a teacher in school, I would hope that that teacher would contact me and say, hey, this is what's going on with your kid, talk to them about it. Not so I can abuse them, not for any other reason than I can help them and be there for them. That's the reason. Parents are the most important people, and we want to know what's going on with our kids. Teachers, I think, should be there to teach, not up here as an advocate, force their policies on kids. I can see that from this guy. It's the first time I've seen him here, but he shouldn't be forcing his policies, trying to force his beliefs and his ideologies on kids. That shouldn't be a thing. But if my kid ever has a problem in school, my kid, one of my boys, I have 4 boys, they feel like they want to be a girl, I want to know so I can be there, and I can help.
Just a reminder to direct your comments.
Thank you.
Sorry. Hello, board. My name is Katarina Scholastic. I'm a resident of Middletown, and I am a parent of 3 children in the Middletown Township School District. I am in full support of the Middletown Board of Education to amend Transgender Policy 5756. The LGBTQIA community claims to be an all-inclusion community, but instead they are here trying to advocate to not include parents. Their position interferes with my ability to help my children, and they keep telling young children that it is the parents' fault for not wanting to help them transition and to be afraid of their parents. Meanwhile, we are here trying to get into our kids' heads by having them think that their parents are not safe. They are here forcing children to turn to other people than their own family. It is not their job to fix what's broken in my home. My children belong to me and no one else. I see it as the Middletown Board of Education is the strongest and fairest board in all of New Jersey. They are being extremely inclusive to make everyone happy. Privacy doesn't exist if a child is making a public transition for everyone to see. If the board felt that a child would be put at risk by telling their caretaker that this amended policy allows for flexibility to protect that child. But the fact is, parents should be a huge part of any conversation about their child transitioning. There is a huge risk in having a child take puberty blockers or have a sex change. All this is irreversible. You do not want an 8-year-old to transition into the opposite gender only to realize 10 or 15 years later they made a mistake. That will cause a child or an adult to have mental issues later in life because of this mistake. If a child is going to make a public transition in front of their peers, you don't think that the parents are going to eventually find out from other people and immediately start advocating for their child to help them? I am tired of the government and other people trying to co-parent with me, trying to tell me what's right for my family. We need to let children be children. There are people here who have no clue what's going on behind my closed doors and others. So for them to come here and advocate for my children, they are stepping out of boundaries. They need to direct their attention elsewhere, not where it doesn't belong. No one loves my children more than me, and I will always support them to the best of my ability. I will do whatever it takes to make sure my child is happy, whatever it takes. No one has the right to remove my parental rights or decide what's best for my family. I will choose to surround my children with people who love and uplift them.
I just want to remind everyone that we're not going to allow shouting down. Everyone's getting a chance to speak here within the time allotted, and showing support is one thing, but when an opinion you disagree with, we're not allowing shouting down or talking in the background. Everyone has a chance to talk. Let's do it respectfully.
My name is Laura Apps, Ladies of Boulevard, Middletown. I'd first like to thank the board for their service to our community and to upholding your promise to protect and always do what is in the best interest of the children of Middletown. I want to start by saying how critical it is that everyone understands exactly what this policy change relates to and addresses. Unfortunately, there is a plethora of disinformation that is being spread by people who have not fully read and understand the policy. This is causing unnecessary division, frustration, and anger. We are all under a tremendous amount of social and emotional stress in today's world, and instead of listening to one another and having mindful, constructive, and critical conversations, we are turning one another with more hate and anger than I could ever imagine. This is the last thing we need our children to bear witness to, and is contrary to the common goal we should all have, which is acceptance and kindness towards all. The first thing that I want to clarify, and it's not something that has been brought up tonight, but it has been brought up in leading up to this meeting, is that this policy has nothing to do with sexual orientation, and it is important that we recognize and understand this policy specifically addresses gender identity. Sexual orientation, gender identity are two completely different things that are being confused by many people. This policy is not requiring teachers or supervisors to notify parents if a student comes to them in confidence discuss their sexual orientation, meaning if they can find a teacher or adult being gay, lesbian, bisexual, or asexual. This type of misinformation spread is causing unnecessary anger and hostility when none is due. The transgender policy is being proposed tonight states, the board finds that conversation with counselors, teachers, or other staff about one's gender identity and expression are entitled to confidentiality. However, in the event a student requests a public social transition accommodation, such as public name, identity, pronoun change, bathroom, locker room accommodation, or sports club accommodations, or alike, the school district shall notify a student's parents or guardian of the student's asserted gender identity and/or name change, or other requested accommodation. It shall be the policy of the board to support and facilitate healthy communication between a transgender student and their family, rather than foster an unreasonable expectation that a public in-school transition will remain confidential or require district staff to affirmatively misrepresent information to parents. This is specific to students who not solely identify as transgender, but who are seeking specific district accommodations, or who may need counseling services that would require parental signature to access. As a mother of a rising 5th grade son and 1st grade daughter, it is my right as a parent to minor children to be notified if they were to request a change in their gender identity at school. It is not only necessary that I as a parent can appropriately address the situation, but also...
It's been 3 minutes.
Hi, Robin Stella, River Plaza. Before I start, I'd like some member of the board to please make a motion to extend the comment period beyond 30 minutes. I know it's been done before. Will somebody please make a motion? Okay. All right, please let everyone speak, as hundreds of people have already been locked out here. So, anyway, I'm a local Middletown person. I'm not some activist who was flown in here for anything. In 2017, Republican Governor Chris Christie signed legislation that required the state to provide guidance to public schools in relation to trans students to ensure supportive learning environments. This included the creation of confidentiality plans to protect their transitioning status. I'll remind you, this was signed into law by Chris Christie, a Republican governor. Human rights are not some leftist idea. I hear that those in the public, that there are those in the public tonight who are promoting this policy change, and they're threatening to brand board members as groomers. For the record, being accepting does not make one a groomer. Adhering to state laws does not make one a groomer. So clearly, the purpose of this policy change is not to help anyone, but only to harm or erase the students that make them feel uncomfortable in this town. As I see it, only one person benefits from this policy change. It's certainly not the LGBTQ+ students that you've heard from tonight, who are 4 times more likely to attempt suicide than their straight peers. It's definitely not the teachers who will have to violate the trust that the student has in them by reporting them. There's only one person I can think of who benefits, and he's sitting right next to Mr. Capone. And that's our school board attorney. He pays, we pay him by the hour. And with our taxpayer money, he will benefit greatly. And also make us susceptible to legal action, so cha-ching, right there. I think you'll benefit greatly from this. Being accepting is very important. Following the law is important. What I ask of all of you is that instead of clenching a fist towards these students, that you instead open your hand and be accepting and protect all the students in Middletown. Thank you.
Chris Stella, River Plaza, Bruce Road. Inner city-like scores on standardized tests showing a great decline, even compared to some surrounding districts. Crumbling facilities, lack of ability to fill advanced teaching positions. Culture of fights and assaults have increased at the secondary school level here in Middletown. Bullying and intimidation on the rise with little recourse. Multiple suicides of students in only a few years here in Middletown. Inequity between one side of town and the other,
in terms of needs and resources. These are all part of what the BOE should oversee, not outing our youth members of our LGBTQ+ community. The BOE knows they are violating state policy. This BOE is using these marginalized youngsters as political currency to garner support. With leadership up for re-election, they see this as a way to gain support for themselves as well as township and district candidates that support them financially. This is simply theater. However, using our kids as props on your stage is unacceptable and why we are all here tonight. This was the exact same tactic that this same BOE leadership used with masks. For all the fighting, changing a venue, the costly legal bills. When did Middletown finally lose the masks? The same exact day every other district did statewide. It was a simple show. It's about gaining votes and submitting to a very loud few who use social media to spout falsehoods, to support their narrative even further, to gain an audience out of an imaginary fear. You know, like litter boxes in the hallways of our schools, leashes on kids, and outlandish books that are being pushed on our kids by our grooming teachers. None of this is happening. But a few will push these falsehoods to spark fear. Our kids should not be used. For decades, we have educated our youth without such a policy. This policy does not solve any problem that is measurable or systematic in nature. Even the BOE members that support this new policy admit it is about providing rights for parents, not the children. I find it ironic as their slogan when campaigning was putting children first. If you want to know what's going on in your child's life, create a welcoming environment where your children will open up and express their feelings to you. Don't use teachers and counselors as your personal spies. In other words, be a parent for once. I've been a public school teacher for 24 years. Much of the need for counseling is because of a child's troubled home or poor relationship with their parents. When students feel they can't go to their parents, they go to trusted teachers or trained counselors they know. This policy will no longer allow trust between a student and staff member. If you truly put children first, as you so boldly printed on thousands of costly signs during your campaign, you will not institute a policy that will only provide an opportunity to hurt children. And for those that were not a part of that campaign but are on the board voting here tonight, resist the temptation to becoming a tool for the advancement.
Your 3 minutes is up.
We see you, and so do your kids.
Hi, good evening. My name is Roy Capito. I live in Highlands. We moved here recently from Florida. We had lived in Florida for 43 years. And I teach courses at the University of South Florida in Tampa called Racism in American Society. I've been hounded out of that state. My wife, Mary, is here. She's a social worker. I'm a PhD in sociology. For 15 years, I was the head of the National Conference of Christians and Jews in the Tampa Bay area. And I tried very hard working during those years in the school districts of Hillsborough, Pinellas, Pasco, and other areas around the state, and even here in this state. I graduated at Asbury Park High School in 1962. I may be one of the oldest people in this room. Next week, we're going to celebrate our 57th year of being married, Mary and I. I really have to tell you that I started a program called Camp Anytown in 1990. That is a program designed to bring teenagers together, 14 to 17 years old. And we created an ideal community where they learn about themselves and one another. And through this activity over the years, I learned that many students were very unsafe at home. Sociological, psychological evidence proves that students are safer in school than they are at home. Fewer problems there than at home. I want you to consider the possibility that changing this kind of policy could have drastic effects on the children and their lives of some of the kids that go to school in Middletown. It's the kind of thing that I wouldn't want to have to sleep at at night, worrying whether or not something that I did might ultimately affect the outcome of the life of the child. I work very hard to try and convince teachers and administrators in the schools in Hillsborough, Pinellas, and Pasco County, and I worked for the OCR for 5 years in Pasco County, to try to get them to understand that what we want to do is not make better students, but make better people. Putting your teachers and administrators in the position of having to decide whether or not to release information about private, personal, confidential information about a student could have drastic implications for the teacher, the administrator, and the child. That's all I want to say. I'd like to yield my time.
Hi, my name is Jason Guzzi, Middletown, 37 years. First thing I would say is some of the brave people behind me asked that the board could stay off their phone when people are talking. But besides that, first I want to open with a positive, as this is my first time speaking here. I wanted to thank the board for the installment of the 18 and Over program. This is something that will continue to strengthen independent living skills of our older special needs population. I think these are the programs that make me appreciate the board's time and efforts. With regards to policy 5756, I'd like to share my objections and my concerns with the amount of time, money, resources that are being exhausted over this. As a longtime resident of Middletown, I think those efforts should be allocated to more pressing matters, like improving our academic and test scores. Over the last 5 years, Middletown North has ranked on average 227th out of all the schools in New Jersey. Comparatively, High School South is ranked 109. Middletown North last year alone had 50.29% of students at the minimum language arts proficiency level set by the state, and math was only at 50.6%. North is also one of the highest student-teacher ratios at 13.4, compared to Kingsburg High School at 11.6. I just want to add that a similar policy was implemented in Hanover Township and was quickly met with a lawsuit by the state attorney general, forcing them to rewrite it, which is a further waste of time, money, and resources. My last comment is that I also think that although our children may be ours, I think all people belong to themselves at the end of the day. Thank you.
Good evening. I am the Reverend Michael Cronin. I am from Rumson, New Jersey. I serve as a priest at St. George's by the River Episcopal Church. I feel that the objections made to the policy regarding transgender students have been pretty well articulated at this point. I would like to add that, to me, it seems outlandish for a kid to, even to just have their name and pronoun respected by their teacher, they may have to risk coming out in a hostile environment. And while there are protections in place in this policy, of course there's nothing to stop a parent from pulling their child and then removing those protections. I would like to use the rest of my time simply to address the LGBT young people in the room. I'm looking at the board, but I'm talking to the LGBT young people in the room. As a transgender man who was once a transgender youth, as a priest in the Episcopal Church, and as a person, you are all loved. You're prayed for, you're cared for. There's a group of priests and pastors and lay people who are here because they love God and because they love you. We're here for you. Hang in there. I'm sorry that you have to fight so hard to be respected in a place where you're just trying to learn, where you have very little relative power in the face of adults who have a hell of a lot of power. Hang in there.
Hello, I'm Victoria Kavish. I'm a lifelong resident of Middletown. I'm very happy to speak on behalf of Gays Against Groomers this evening. This is a statement from Gays Against Groomers. We are Gays Against Groomers, Inc. We have officially submitted this statement to be read on our behalf. Gays Against Groomers is a 501c4 organization of gay people who oppose the recent trend of indoctrinating, sexualizing, and medicalizing children under the guise of LGBTQIA+. We are disgusted that NJ State Attorney General filed a motion to stop a local school board from protecting parental rights. Every parent has the right to know what's going on with their children, and a majority of parents today are far more accepting, compassionate, and understanding than our government is currently giving them credit for. The Attorney General's argument is that parents wanting to know if their child is going through an identity crisis is somehow a violation of New Jersey's law against discrimination. So we decided to look into what's supposedly the most comprehensive anti-discrimination law in the country. What we found is a loophole under the protected classes under the LAD, which states that the LAD prohibits discrimination and bias-based harassment based on actual or perceived, and then a long list of reasons people can say they're discriminated against. Let's go back to that word, perceived. There are actually two definitions. One of them is become aware of, and the other is interpret or regard as. For those of you who don't understand what this means, it's a weaponization of language to give your children the power to claim they're being discriminated against at home, even if they're not. It's all based on their interpretation. If they feel it, it must be true. We never thought we would see the day when our government would enable this kind of overreach, split up our families, and take ownership of our children. And we never thought we'd see other parents supporting
Thank
it.
you. Your 3 minutes is in.
My name is Reverend Gregory Quinlan. I'm with the Center for Garden State Families. We are a statewide family advocacy organization. I'm here to speak on behalf of parents. I come with it with a unique perspective. My sexual orientation is ex-gay. That means I used to live as a gay man, and I don't any longer. I used to be with the Human Rights Campaign Fund, as it was called then, the largest gay and lesbian political organization in the country. It ranks as the 9th largest of all independent political action committees, chiefly responsible for the billions of dollars in AIDS research and support money that comes from the federal government. That's why I got involved in that organization, it's for that AIDS money. I'm a nurse. I watched 100 of my friends and acquaintances die of AIDS before I quit counting. Many more since then. I questioned my sexuality before I became and identified as a gay man, and then when I left homosexuality. Because here are the facts. And everybody has their own separate facts, but these are verified and I will send them to you to your emails. There are no replicated scientific studies supporting any specific biologic etiology for homosexuality. That's the American Psychiatric Association, the MDs. In 2019, August 2019, one of the largest human genome studies ever done released this study called the Ghana study, done on 3 continents, multiple institutions, including MIT, Harvard, Queensland, Australia, Cambridge, and Stanford had something to do with it, with hundreds of researchers, many of them who identified as LGBTQIA-XYZ, and I use that term because they've
tripled the alphabet with these fake identities, imagined identities. They're not real. At the end of that study, they used 477,000 human genomes. 477,000. That's larger than the city of Newark. At the end of the study, with reluctance, because so many of the researchers there did not want the findings published, said this, quote, "There is no single gay gene," end quote. There's no cluster of genes. There's nothing biologic or genetic regarding someone's sexual orientation or their desire for sex with someone else. It is a developmental gender identity disorder. Developed, not innate. Acquired, not inborn. Nobody is born gay. Nobody's born lesbian. Nobody's born in the wrong body. Nobody. And I want to address this other fact. As you notice, those who demand tolerance the most possess it the least. Here's the fact regarding the lawsuits and the money you're going to pay on being sued and what's happening in Hanover. There are multiple public interest law firms across this country. They will pay for your salary, sir.
Good evening, members of the board. My name is Michael Gottesman. I'm the founder of the New Jersey Public Education Coalition. And before anyone says anything, I was invited here by members of the community. I had planned to speak to you on this particular revision and basically drive home the point that how many of you really know this community? How many of you have experienced it? How many members of your family that are part of this community? So how can you possibly be passing a revision that will so negatively impact upon this community when you don't have the knowledge of what the community is? Do you guys know the distinction between gender identity and gender expression, between sexual orientation and gender identity? Well, I invite all of you to take these 3 segmented training courses that are offered by the New Jersey Division on Civil Rights that deal with transgender and LGBTQ in the schools. And hold off on your decision until you educate yourself and you understand this community before you do something which will have a dramatic negative effect. Now, a couple of other things came. Members of your student community appeared here tonight with posters that they wanted to hold up in this room. And they were told by the police that this board has a policy against that. Seems to me that that's an infringement of their First Amendment rights. And in fact, if there is a policy, every board policy must be in writing. So I would ask that you send me a copy of that policy voluntarily, or I can always file an OPER. My next question is, what has changed that such a dramatic change to this policy is required? Tell people what's changed in your community, what's changed in your school. Now, finally, I want you to understand that you need to know of the people that come and speak before you. And the speaker just before me, I didn't expect to be speaking after him, but you should know a few things. You should know that in 2013, when the Supreme Court overturned the Defense of Marriage Act, he came out and said it was ruled by 5 black-robed Nazis, and then he claimed that Justices Kagan and Justice Kennedy were gay and said they ruled on the case to satisfy their own lust. But he wasn't satisfied with that, because then he made a statement that the most powerful person in the world at the time, President Obama, was a down-low president because no one could support the LGBT community unless they were a member of themselves. And the Reverend likes to quote the Ganner Report. They clearly are a secret. Nobody ever said that there was a single gay gene.
It's been 3 minutes, sir.
Thank you.
Like I said, there was 50 here. My promise has been 1 hour. We're gonna have 5 more speakers.
You're harassing me, Reverend. Please get out of my face.
Excuse
I
me,
need the
sir.
police to take this man away from me.
Attracted to me?
I'll repeat that one more time for everybody. It's been 1 hour as promised. We're gonna allow 5 more speakers and then move on with our agenda.
Frank said he'd be here in 3 minutes.
Please remove the people who are being yelling out. Will be removed. Go ahead, ma'am.
Good evening, my name is Teresa Blackburn, and I am a resident of Middletown and a voter in this school district. I am testifying on behalf of the League of Women Voters of Monmouth County. The League of Women Voters have a long history of advocating for the rights, health, and education of children, defending our democracy and ending discrimination against the LGBTQ+ community go hand in hand. We are gravely concerned with proposed policies that put student safety and mental health at risk and violate New Jersey's law against discrimination. Public schools are a cornerstone of democracy, and New Jersey should strive to ensure our schools are safe, inclusive, and welcoming for all. Proposals like this are causing extreme political polarization and are manufactured to divide our communities and increase distrust in public education and civic engagement. Outing children puts them at risk for bullying, harassment, and discrimination. It makes them more vulnerable to self-harm and suicide. Despite arguments otherwise, numerous studies and data show that forced outing to parents is harmful, not helpful to LGBTQ+ youth. Here's the bottom line. If a child is not sharing information about their sexuality or gender identity with their caregivers, those grown-ups should be concentrating on the environment they are fostering within the 4 walls of their own home, instead of attacking and blaming the school where the child might feel safer. It is important to note that this is not a standalone policy, but part of a concentrated effort to undermine public education. In addition to attacks on LGBTQ+ student rights, the campaign includes book bans, attacks on sexual education, and attempts to rewrite American history by prohibiting accurate and necessary conversations about race and equity. The League of Women Voters cannot stand by while a small minority uses our classrooms as political battlegrounds at the expense of our students and our country's future. This is also an attack on our public school educators and has served to drive highly trained, experienced teachers out of the field. It is time to say no to these attacks. Time to support our educators and stand up for our children. We urge the Board of Education to reject the proposals under consideration tonight. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Pamela Renee. I'm a council member in Neptune City, part of Monmouth County, and I've been asked to come here today by members of Middletown community. And as a fellow elected official, I just want to thank you for your service. It's a great commitment, no pay, and you often take a lot of abuse. So I just want to thank you for being here. And I want to thank you for representing the children. I'm here to speak out for our LGBTQ community. I know there's no representation on the board, and that's why I'm here today, because representation matters. And I think that the policy changes that you want to make are very, very harmful. And I've been told that, don't waste my breath, because most of you are going to vote for these changes, and there's nothing that can be said that's going to change your minds. But I've sat on the dais, and I've listened to the public, and I've changed my mind and my vote based on what was said and what I heard. And that is my hope, and that is my prayer, that you will vote no to these changes tonight, at least to postpone your vote and become more educated. I know you've already done a lot of research, but The policies that the state put in place took years to develop. I wasn't part of that team that developed those policies, but I know the people who were, and they took so much time and consideration. They listened to LGBTQ students and the public, and there are reasons why the New Jersey state policies are the way they are. And if you out students, unfortunately, it can bring about a lot of harm to those students. I would trust the students to know their own caregivers, to know if it's safe for them to tell them, and when it's the right timing for them to feel safe enough to tell them. You do represent the students, and I am here to urge you with the hope and prayer that you will vote no for these changes. There are a lot of people don't know that a lot of people are born intersex. So when they don't want to identify one way or the other, it's because maybe they haven't decided which way they're gonna go yet, you know? So it's like, how can we say for them when they're just trying to explore this themselves to know? So please just adhere to the state policy. I mean, it was well-researched and developed, and it came into place after a long period of time. And it's a public school system in New Jersey.
Thank you for allowing me to speak. My name is Jeanette Margaret. I'm a Middletown resident, voter, and taxpayer. I'm here tonight to express my strong opposition to the changes proposed to the transgender student policy. We're often told that the boards of education are nonpartisan. I can tell you it doesn't feel that way right now. When you look at all the politics being propagated across our state and all at the same time and all with very similar language, it certainly feels political. Each of you has taken an oath to protect all the students in our school and to make the proper use of the resources at hand: time, money, and work. Now, people have gone through the various dangers of outing a student before they're ready, the issues certainly for teachers and counselors, the conflict between the need to have confidentiality and this policy. There's also a tremendous risk that some of the speakers touched on of financial costs, and legal expenses, and potential liabilities. As you all know, over half of our municipal taxes go to support our school. Last year saw an increase in half of our homeowners. That's not my statistic, that's our own, it's the Middletown assessor. This irresponsible policy will cost significant additional legal fees to defend the challenges that are going to come from the New Jersey Attorney General's office on civil rights grounds, and whatever other challenges and suits will surely follow. God forbid a child is harmed by this policy, the school system could find itself under a massive legal liability. Year ending June 30, 2022. Does anyone on the board know what the budget line for legal services was? $265,000. That's over $250,000. How much more are we willing to pay to put a harmful policy like this in place? Has the board budgeted for the additional costs that will come? Is there an estimate for these costs? Where will the cost come from? That's something that I hope you are all considering very carefully as you think about this harmful policy. I urge each of you, in the strongest terms, to do your jobs in a nonpartisan, deliberative, prudent manner, Reject these dangerous changes and work. Do the work. It's hard work. It's collaborative work to address the real, urgent problems of our students, our parents, our teachers, and our community. Thank you.
First, I want to say thank you to the board members for this opportunity to talk about the revisions to this transgender student policy.
Name and address.
I'm sorry, Emery Scrinos, Sherlin Terrace. First, I want to say thank you to Kaylee, because you have been at every board meeting. I've been at every board meeting. You have been here every board meeting, and you have been respectful in your service to what you've done for the board and bringing the student information in has been invaluable. So I just want to thank you for that. And I sat here for an hour, stood here for an hour and listened to everyone speak. And so my speech may be a little bit different than I had planned. And I also know that there are a ton more families here that are not speaking, but that are in agreement with what I'm about to say. The revisions make sure that all children are protected. We have wonderful and amazing teachers, staff, and administration in Middletown. We are blessed, but we, the parents, are the constant in our children's lives. And I listened tonight, and we seem to forget that this is a public school where we pay taxes for our children to attend school. We are the parents. And as a parent of 2 children, one in elementary and one in middle school, I have to sign a permission slip for everything, whether it's to give permission for the nurse to administer Tylenol or an inhaler, for field trips, even to acknowledge that I read a syllabus or know what book my son chose for his ELA project. We sign these permission slips because Middletown recognizes that parents are an integral part of our children's lives. Not just to sign paper, it means something. If my child went to school and asked a teacher, not a friend, but a teacher, to call them a different name than what is on school papers, or asked for an accommodation to use a different bathroom or locker room that was different than their physiological makeup, I would expect a phone call. I would want to know what is going on. I would want to know if there's a reason that this is happening. The opposition argues that all parents are not suited or kind enough or understanding enough to handle this conversation. Why? If that's true, there are means made available to protect that child. But it is not okay to assume that every parent cannot handle this conversation. And if the child is not ready to talk to their parents, as I'm hearing time and time again for the last hour, the school can facilitate that conversation that is meant to have with the child and the parents. That is what their role is. Their role is not to deceive. Their role is not to be in a position to lie or deceive parents. Their role is to work collaboratively with the education system, with the administrators, with the teachers. That is their role, not to take the place of the parents.
3 minutes or 5.
Is that?
My name is Pamela Burke. I live in Oak Hill. I've lived in Middletown forever, and my kids are proud graduates of Dutchwell, Thompson, and South. One of those children has a non-binary, trans-feminine gender identity. And I have to tell you, the most important conversation I had with my child was when they came to me, when they were ready to come to me and explain their experience in life. They thought long and hard about how to talk about this, what information I might want to know, how to prevent me from becoming a helicopter mom and barging into the school and demanding that my child be taken care of. They wanted to show me that they had agency. They were capable of exploring this and talking to people. They could tell me that their friends had their back, their teachers were cool, the administrators got them, and they trusted that I would love them. And that conversation, I remember every minute of it, and I would be incredibly sad if you prevented me from having the opportunity to say to my kid, thank you for telling me. Thank you for feeling the trust in this relationship. I love you. I'm proud of you. Had that conversation been required by the school and taken away the empowerment of my kid to have the leadership of their own life, my relationship with them would be entirely different. Imagine your mother-in-law telling your future fiance that they're going to be engaged tonight. Those conversations that we're going to remember for the rest of our life deserve to be owned and by the people in the conversation. And no public agency should be the ones who dictate how and when a trans child talks to their parent. I'm for you. The student-centered part of the policy, which has so many things crossed out on it, demonstrates that you haven't listened to the community.
Since you announced, and for the record, public comment started at 8:18 and is now 9:40, so you've had public comment for a total of 1 hour and 22 minutes.
We will have more public comment after we get to the agenda for another 30 minutes. Need a motion to approve minutes from executive session 5/15/23, the special voting meeting 5/15/2023, executive session 5/23/23, and workshop regular voting meeting 5/23/23. All in favor? Aye. Discussion? Abstentions? Need a motion to approve, I'm sorry, Amy, Board Secretary of Monthly Security.
The Board Secretary's monthly certification certifies that the May 31st, 2023 Board Secretary's report does not reflect any line item that is overexpended in accordance with New Jersey Administrative Code.
Need a motion to approve C1 through C4.
So
Discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? I'm now going to turn it over to Mrs. Walker for the superintendent.
Good evening, everyone. Earlier this evening, the board accepted my resignation, so I just want to read a little bit from my letter to express my reflection on my career here, basically, and my thanks to the people that I lead on and who have really done a good job in this district. So, as I reflect on my career as a teacher and administrator in the district, I'm overwhelmed by the countless memories of the remarkable students who touched my life. Their determination, resilience, and achievements have been a constant source of inspiration. Moreover, it's their compassionate acts of kindness towards others that have truly left a lasting impact on me. I'm proud to have been a part of their educational journey. I'm deeply grateful to our students' parents for their steadfast support and active involvement in their children's lives. The collaboration between staff and parents has led to enhanced educational experiences for our students. Parents are valuable partners in educating our students, and I appreciate all their efforts to support student success. The Middletown Township District staff is extremely dedicated, skilled, hardworking, and caring. In other words, they are exceptional. Whether they are educating our students, maintaining a clean and nurturing learning environment, ensuring student safety and security, providing vital organization support, or managing the complex operations that keep our district schools running smoothly, our staff always places the student at the heart of their work. I sincerely admire, respect, and value their passion and commitment to our students. I will profoundly miss my colleagues across the district and cherish the privilege of having worked alongside them for many years. I want to express my heartfelt appreciation to the members of the Board of Education for affording me the opportunity to lead this extraordinary district.
I'm grateful for your support and staunch commitment to providing an excellent education for our students. You set a vision for our district that values every student, and you have championed initiatives to enhance their academic achievements as well as their social and emotional growth. The countless volunteer hours you have dedicated to our district have greatly benefited our entire school community. Serving to Middletown Public Schools has been an outstanding honor and a true privilege, and it really has been. Please accept my deepest gratitude for the incredible opportunities and cherished memories I've gained over the years. Thank you, everybody, community. Thank you.
Okay, a motion to approve 12D1 to 13B5.
So moved.
Discussion?
Mr. Capone,
Yes.
I just want to say we're administratively withdrawing under student services number 4, the first line item on the tuition.
Right, I'm sorry.
That's B4.
B4, so a motion for D1 to B3 and B5.
Well, no, we're doing B4, just the first item in that item is coming out of the tuition, the Kingsburg DOE. We're not approving that.
For D1 through 13B5.
To the top of page 8.
Top of page 8, you're right. Discussion? Yeah. Joan, what do you need help with?
Yeah, we're just making sure.
You should be on top of page 8 right now. Good?
Yeah.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I'm opposed. Yes, to the unfounded hate on number 2, but I am no unfounded hate. On all the hits, because the hits are put together, founded and unfounded. So on the founded hits, I'm a no. I know I made it harder for you, Matt. I'm sorry.
No, is that clear for the record? Okay.
I'm the same way. I'm just a no on founded hits 246918 and 248354.
I'm a no on 246918.
I'm a no on 246918 and 248354.
Same for me, 918 and 354. Motion to approve 13D1.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
I'm opposed on 756.
Abstentions? Need a motion to approve 13E1 to G1.
So moved.
Discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Yep. Motion to approve 1 through 25. On the personnel agenda, yes. Discussion?
I am going to be voting no on the administrative table and the recommendation of superintendent for supervisor. And the only reason I'm doing that is not that I don't have faith in the people doing it, but I feel that the salary disparity is too far apart. And that's what causes people not to be comfortable or feel that they're not worthy of their job. So for me, it's just the salary, not the people. And what number is that? That is number 10 and 11. And on number 25, HR 15, I'm voting no on number 12.
Okay, anyone else?
Yeah, as for number 7, I oppose on the number 1 transfer.
I'm sorry, Mrs. Wright, I didn't get all of that.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Number seven.
Under number 7, I'm opposed on the number 1 transfer.
I'm opposed on that one as well.
That is what happened. Well, I don't think we might call for a vote. This all kind of happened under discussion, so is everyone else?
No, we can't. So 1 through 25, so everybody is voting yes minus these at the beginning now.
Okay.
Anyone else? Good. Hey, Gary? Good. That was 1 through 25.
Did you vote no on the entire?
No, it was just the one position.
No, I guess, no, I voted no on both because they tie in together.
You voted no, I think she had a different question. You voted no on 10 and 11.
Yes.
And she's talking about 25,
25.
but not the entire list, is my
No, only
understanding.
number 12 on the list.
Thank you.
Now we're gonna move to old business. Anybody have old business? No? Wow, okay. We're gonna move to new business. Does anyone have new business?
Yes, I did. I just want to say congratulations to all of our graduates, middle school and high school. The graduations were incredible. It was great to see. This is a reward for us to see what we do, watching our students graduate and achieve all the awards and all the things that they do. And it was great to hear from the high school north principal that it also recognized all of our students that go out for career. And that was really incredible. In fact, tonight I got an email from a high school South student. He's going to be a senior, and he got his first job as a welder with a company for the summer. Not an internship, it's a job, and he gets the company truck and everything. I can't wait for us to hear more about our career jobs and our career classes that our kids are taking, because I'm sure there's more than just this one student. But it's a step that we've been trying to take for many years, and it's finally coming to fruition, so I'd like to congratulate him on that. Our high school speeches were great, but I have to say I was disappointed in one thing. The Pats chose to do an article on a young lady who passed out, and they even put the point of where you could go and watch her faint. I am really grateful to all of our board members who jumped off the stage to help her. I think that's very humanistic, and I think anybody there would have done the same thing, because that's what we do for our students. But for the Pats to highlight that as the highlight of the day, when there was so many great things that went on at that graduation and so many accolades, I just find that very disturbing. And I also find it maybe embarrassing to the poor student who now everybody in town goes to click on that and sees the unfortunate event that happened. I wish her well, and I'm sure she's fine, but I think it was poor taste on the Pats to print that article. So I just wanted to say that. I've never seen anything like that happen before. That day is about our students, and that's the way it should stay.
Does anyone else have new business? Okay, we're now going to open up for public comment. We have a 30-minute limit, same as before, 3 minutes each. Please state your name and address for the record.
Thank you. My name is Kelly. Middletown resident. I'm speaking here tonight as a concerned community member. As we all know, we're in the midst of some pretty divisive cultural issues here in this country, most recently targeting the transgender community. And let's be honest, they are easy targets. They are largely misunderstood. They are marginalized, mostly being forced to live on the fringe of society. And now we witness them being swept up and weaponized as part of a political tactic to mobilize a large group of people using fear and misinformation with the assumption that most people won't be motivated to do their own due diligence on what it means to be transgender. So let's start there. The truth is, gender identity is real, and it is separate from natal sex, which are the body parts you are born with. For more than 99% of people, the external sex characteristics and chromosomes, the determinants of what you call a person's natal sex, match the person's gender identity. For less than 1%, the natal sex and gender identity are opposite. When this occurs, it's called transgender. Identifying as trans is not a fad, or a phase, or a choice. It is a real part of human biology that is vastly misunderstood simply because it affects so little of the population. The American Medical Association cites evidence that trans and non-binary gender identities are normal variants of human identity and expression, and that foregoing gender-affirming care can have tragic health consequences, both mental and physical. And when you are a child, gender-affirming care can be as simple as respecting name and pronoun choices and providing safe spaces such as school environment for exploring your identity. The American Academy of Pediatrics released the following statement in 2012. Being transgender or gender variant implies no impairment in judgment, stability, reliability, or general social or vocational capabilities. However, these individuals often experience discrimination due to a lack of civil rights protections for their gender identity or expression. Such discrimination and lack of equal civil right is damaging to the mental health of transgender and gender variant individuals. And so here we find ourselves today, with extreme political and religious ideologies deciding that they carry more weight than our most accredited medical associations, forgoing the long-standing history of trans people, as well as human biology, and the lived experience of trans people. I hope you all see how problematic and terrifying that is. I come here tonight as a concerned community member and as a mom who has children in this school district to request that this board refocus their efforts and resources.
Thank you. 3 minutes.
My name is Allison Krug. I am a tax-paying member out of Leonardo. I have a small child entering the district in September. This is more towards the parents that support this. Your teachers are not grooming your children. They're not indoctrinating them. If your kids are not confiding in you, that means their teachers are a safer space than you are. It is time to take a look in the mirror and recognize the issues with yourself and stop blaming the teachers that you don't have a relationship with your child. And expecting them to bridge that gap is ridiculous. That's not what they're there for. They're there to teach our children, to protect them in the ways that they can. And if that's by supporting their individualities without putting them into harm's way with their parents, then that's what they need to do. It's not about you, it's about the kids. I yield my time.
Hello, my name is Ezekiel Ibarra, and I've lived in Belford for 10 years now. When I attended school at North, it was one of my only safe spaces since my mom is not supportive. Out of all the teachers I've had, they've been amazing and called me by my name, even though my own mother won't. She even threw away my college mail since it didn't have my birth name on it. Isn't it sad that there are other people like me and children who can't be safe at their own homes? What you want to do is rip away any form of comfort that we have, to which we have little. Even your children, even if your children aren't telling you stuff about themselves, about their gender identity or sexuality, that speaks volumes about you and not them. I will not stand for you to spew hatred at us and try to eradicate us. We won't let you pass this, and you can't get rid of any of us.
Good evening. My name is, you guys hear me? Good evening. My name is Tom Ballard. I am a lifelong resident of Belford. I'm also a teacher here at Middletown High School North. I am one of the co-advisors of our Gender and Sexuality Alliance. Schools are more than just educational facilities. They are the hubs that allow our students to grow professionally, emotionally, and socially into the well-rounded individuals that we all hope for them to become. The proposed revisions to the district's policies on transgender students unfairly target and discriminate against a group of people that already face heavy marginalization in our community. When students are singled out and punished due to a defined characteristic, such as their race, ethnicity, sexual orientation, or gender identity, it is the quintessential characteristic of discrimination. Moreover, these proposed revisions will reverse protections guaranteed by all students in the New Jersey Department of Education's Transgender Students Guidance for Schools, published in 2018. According to these guidelines, it is only when a specific and compelling need exists that a student's transgender status can be revealed by school officials. Clearly, just by identifying by a different name or pronoun does not meet the state's expectation of specific or compelling need. The ramifications, if the board decides to enact these policies while only impacting a small group of students, will be monumental. This year, Middletown North GSA sat down with the school administration and had a productive conversation where we list our concerns and grievances and any changes that we thought could be made in our school community to make it more inclusive and more inviting. I believe, as an educator, and as someone who is truly here to help these students grow, that it would be more beneficial to listen to these concerns than enact these sort of policy changes. We hope that students are to grow up and have agency, then we must allow them to make decisions. And I commend all the students and alumni who showed up today to tell their opinions on this, because it's not easy. When I was a student, I remember standing up here asking the board a question about block scheduling. Ms. Caminiti, it's not forgotten on me that after that meeting, you, Mr. Bennett, came up to me to ask me more about my opinion, even 8 years later. I believe there are several members of this board, many of you who care about the safety and well-being of our students. The students have spoken, the folks outside have spoken. It's time that we listen to them. As a teacher, I encourage my students to speak their mind and to stand up for what they believe is right. And I lead by example. Even when I have to stand up and address the folks who bore my employment contract every year. We are here because we all want the same thing, for students to grow into responsible citizens.
Hi, my name is Julia Donahue. I'm a resident of Middletown in Norfolk Road, and I'm really nervous. So, but I've been here listening to everybody, and there's a lot of passion in this room, but standing here for almost 2 hours, and I gotta say, you guys still look really attentive. I credit the coffee in this before this meeting, good job. But I'm struck by the visual reminder here of these illustrations, which are inspired clearly by the Keith Haring designs that were made famous in the 1980s and 90s during the AIDS crisis, when we saw parents leave their dying children in hospitals and not claim their bodies. When they were buried in Potter's Field, were never claimed at all. We saw parents who refused to go to their dying children's bedsides. Now, I understand the passion of the people who have spoken, who have said, my children's home. But I promise you, there are children in this world whose parents would not go to their bedside if they were dying, and we have seen it happen. I want to believe in Middletown that every kid comes from a house where they would get a hug, but that's just not the case. And the reason that they're speaking to their teachers, I gotta say, kudos to our teachers to create these loving bonds. I mean, I still remember the teachers from high school that I felt I could talk to about things. So we don't know, it's been said before, better than the students what their home environments are. But I think we need to trust them, because history has shown us that we don't all come from the homes where the kids are loved no matter what. It's unfortunate, but it's reality. I also want to say that outing kids before they are unready in any way is unconstitutional, but oh man, it is so cruel. It is really cruel. And I think that the reality is it puts kids in harm's way. If you could save just one kid, wouldn't it be worth it to say no? Wouldn't it be worth it to just say to that one kid, you're safe? This is not about excluding parents. It's about understanding that kids know what they can share and what they can't, and what they're not ready to. You just might not be ready to yet. Okay? Thank you guys for your time. I hope you have a great day.
Good evening, my name is Roxanne Judith. I live in Red Bank. I'm an educator at Red Bank Regional High School, working with LGBTQ youth as a teacher and a GSA advisor. It is a fact that some kids are not safe to come out of home. Home may not be a refuge, but school may be their safe place. If we care about children, as I'm sure everybody in this room cares about their own children, as I care about my own child at home, then we should be supportive of a child's right to privacy until they feel safe and supported enough to come out of home. If the concern is we don't know what their teachers or counselors are saying to them, let me assure you that if you shut that avenue down, the internet still exists, and it's much more explicit, has a lot of specious advice, and can be much more radicalizing than anything that their teacher can say to them in 2 minutes as they leave the classroom. I know it's hard as parents to accept that our children make choices for themselves. To support, affirm, and respect that our children have different goals for themselves than we have for them can be a very difficult and, quite frankly, a growth experience for the parents as much as the children. And as parents, we do worry about their long-term well-being, their ability to fit in, their success at work and school. But our children are not our property. They are their own people. And I know this is kind of a moot point because you already made the changes, but thank you for your time and your consideration. And I hope you really listen to the people in this room and out there tonight. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is the Reverend Debbie Cook, and I am a priest and the rector of All Saints Memorial Church in Navesink, also known as the Stone Church. And in our faith tradition, one of the things we hold in our baptismal covenant is, will you strive for justice and peace among all people and respect the dignity of every human being, including those who are very young. And we take them seriously when they say that they do not feel safe. Now we do, as a parent who has children that are now adults, I would want to have them know that and want them to feel that they are safe to come to me. But if for some reason they did not, I would want them to have a safe place for them to be at school, where they would be able to tell their story and live their truth. We believe in our faith tradition that God loves everyone, no exceptions. And that holds true. And I'm sure many of you in this room believe that. And that's a wonderful thing. But that doesn't hold true for everybody. And as a community, we are bound to protect the most vulnerable. And that is where we need to draw the baseline. And I feel that this baseline that has been drawn is not at the right level. I ask you to please think on that, reconsider, and perhaps really listen to the people who are affected the most by these changes. Good night.
Good evening. It's nice to be back in Middletown.
I'm sorry, just name
I'm
and
sorry.
address for the record.
I just thought they all knew who I was. Cheryl Cudahy. I live in Brash Farms, and I've been a lifelong resident of Middletown. We moved here in 1978. I graduated from high school work. I brought my family back here to raise them because truly I love Middletown. My 3 boys, Kevin, Ryan, and Sean, have benefited from so many of the teachers that were here earlier, some of their former teachers who are now administrators. However, tonight, unfortunately, I had a bunch of prepared remarks for you, but it's a moot point at this time. And I am so disappointed in the decision that you made. So disappointed. And I am scared for our students because I don't think you realize what is going to happen to them, many of them, not all of them, but many of them. As a school administrator, a professor at Rutgers where I'm training new teachers, what you have done is wrong, it is illegal, and I might add, as a friendly little reminder, you all agreed to a code of ethics. I believe it's the same. All of you agreed to uphold and enforce all laws, rules, and regulations of the State Board of Education and court orders pertaining to schools. You also agreed to make decisions in terms of the educational welfare of children and seek to develop and maintain public schools which meet, and I quote, the individual needs of all children regardless of their ability, race, creed, sex, or social standing. And finally, my third point from your little code of ethics is that you also agreed to confine your board action to policy making, planning, and appraisal, and that you would help to frame policies and plans only after the board has consulted those who will be affected by them. So my question to you, and I hope I don't know if you're allowed to answer on the fly, as educators we often have to do that, how many of our transgender students whom this policy that you have now put in place, how many of them did you actually speak to or consult with? 1, 20, anybody? I'm not asking you guys, I'm asking you guys. How many?
The board will not be responding to questions.
Oh, all right. Well, I do hope the board will take time to reflect tonight. On a personal note to Ms. Mindy's, you and I have a little history, and I know you remember back at Leonardo in 2008 when we did an anti-bullying day, and some people were very angry when we did that. I was 2 years, thank you, I was 2 years ahead of my time in laws when you're wrong on this one. It's Dr. Cudahy, Mr. Padula, thank you. I'm Tom Brown.
I'm sorry, say that again.
Holly Bruff, Devonshire Court, Middletown resident and diligent taxpayer. Members of the Board of Education, Middletown community, and fellow members of the LGBTQ community, I speak now, nervous as all get out, as a collegiate professor, a Little League coach in this beloved community, a proud parent of a village student, and a proud member of the LGBT community. I express my grave concern regarding the change you just approved. I'll pause during your comments. I assume that won't come out of my 3 minutes. Thank you, Mr. Padula. The change that you just approved to District Policy 5756 regarding
transgender students. Deeply troubling is your deletion of the definition and terms. Eliminate it. This equates to eliminating the existence and acknowledgement of gender identity, gender expression, sexual orientation, the very word transgender itself, transition, LGBTQ has been eliminated as a term. Gender nonconforming, gender expansive, and cisgender. You just passed forced outing of our beloved students. Putting children first, I question that. This removes the possibility of, in some cases, the only safe space for these transgender students. Sadly, and now a burden on the discriminatory actions of this board, I don't allow students in my class to be on their phones. Ms. Tobacco, I appreciate your attention. Data indicate that 82% of transgender individuals have considered killing themselves. And according to a 2022 study in the Journal of Interpersonal Violence, 40% have attempted suicide. 40% of our transgender community in this country have attempted suicide. With suicidality highest among transgender youth. As a parent, I understand the drive to be informed about what's happening with my student in class. But the literature is clear and reflects that sometimes the only safe space for these students is at school. The Middletown school community that I have come to know is welcoming and inclusive. Thank you.
Thank you.
Daughters attending school in Middletown.
I'm sorry, address the record?
In Middletown, is everyone giving their street?
No, I didn't hear you say Middletown.
Yes. I have 2 daughters attending school in the Middletown Public School District. I've been attending board meetings since 2017. I have some thoughts and concerns I would like to address tonight. It has less to do with arguing over a policy on the rights of our gender diverse children and their mental health. I leave that up to the experts, as we all should. By experts, I mean mental health experts who see children privately and work in the school systems. I mean the New Jersey Department of Education's transgender student guidance. I mean the gender diverse children themselves. Our children provide us the language. They provide us their thoughts and feelings. They do this when and if it feels safe to do so. They do this with whom and where it feels safe to do so. If a school is going to disclose such personal, vulnerable information about these kids before they are ready, I feel that is a violation of my parental rights, the right to ensure the safety of my child. I'm actually here to plead with the board to shift their focus to the pressing issues that are facing our school community and children. In 2020, dozens, even hundreds of community members came together over several productive forums, sharing ideas, concerns, and values to form our district's mission statement, goals, and objectives that would drive efforts of the board and administration over the 5-year period. Based on this process, class size, budget, special education, and overcrowding were the community's greatest concerns. From all the information gathered, goals were generated. The first 2 goals for the school years 2020 to 2025 are continue commitment to student success by promoting social emotional wellness with an objective of providing an engaging, supporting, and safe educational environment for our students, and increasing equity and opportunity to ensure the needs of all learners are met. This information is what should be driving the board's efforts and priorities right now. If it isn't, then we're left to question your motives. I plead with you to stand against this policy, that was before you already passed it, that is taking up the district's valuable time, resources, and money. Prioritize the issues that continue to plague our schools and leave these children alone.
schools that I lived in Middletown for the last 44 years. I was a teacher of health and physical education for 33 years, and I coached high school boys volleyball team for 28 years, so I have extensive experience with working in facilities in matters of health education and gender identity. I want to talk to you today about accommodating transgender students, which you have already violated. It is important that the school board consider their responsibility to our students for their safety and success in achieving their academic goals. Changing the policy which you've just done for accommodating the transgender student puts their safety at risk and diminishes their ability to be successful in their academic studies. Changing policy sets forth by the state denies the student with the environment in which they can learn and grow as human beings. These policies that changes endanger the very sentiment on which the school system has been built. I believe the state of New Jersey's laws regarding accommodating transgender students is clear, and the Board of Education must implement them. Safety should be uppermost in the minds of the school board. As it exists today, having only one unisex bathroom, which can be abused by students and can be locked and unusable, is untenable. The other bathrooms in the school are monitored by teachers at all times, and yet the unisex bathroom is not. It would appear that this policy is detrimental to the students who need to use this facility safely, and in order to encourage our students to be successful academically, the use of only one bathroom is inconvenient because causes the students to be delayed getting back and forth to classes. If the student stops drinking liquids in school for fear of being unable to relieve themselves, we are creating a medically dangerous situation. The same unisex bathroom is also used as a changing room instead of a locker room, thus causing the backup of students, which is the nurse's office, which also causes the students to be late for gym or their classes, and is unfortunately not as safe for transgender students. Changing facilities and bathroom facilities need to be more centrally located on each floor. The risk of harassment and bullying while using traditional boys and girls locker room that puts the transgender student in mortal danger, and one the teachers and staff cannot prevent or intercede in. Convenient changing arrangements need to be made for all our students, and we must follow state guidelines. Changing the guidelines for accommodation for transgender will diminish their ability to be successful Americans in whatever they endeavor.
My name is Kendall Burns, and I am a recent graduate from Middletown High School South. I have lived in Middletown my entire life. My father has lived in Middletown his entire life. Both of us have graduated from High School South, and to my point, the entire time that I have gone to Middletown schools, never has an injustice like this happened. Now, I can't exactly read my speech anymore because you chose to pass this policy, which is now endangering and outing trans children. But I'm going to try and read this. The policy to turn teachers from safe spaces to people who are required to report when a transgender student has come out to them to the child's parents is ridiculous. I don't believe you know how incredibly dangerous this policy can be. While yes, some parents are supportive and would do anything for their child, others are not. By outing a child to their parents, you are bringing the possibility of immense danger into their lives and potential abuse of the parents. And I'm aware you may say, no, parents are abusive, or that you're looking out for the students. However, what you fail to observe is the reality, as I previously stated. Why is it that therapists don't disclose their minor patients' meetings with their parents? Because privacy is important, even for minors. These are two extremely similar circumstances. While for therapists it may be HIPAA bound, minors still have rights, just like legal adults. There is absolutely no reason that you as parents and professionals
should be risking the privacy and safety of minors for your own agendas. School settings are supposed to be safe for all, and by passing this, you are turning it into an unsafe environment along with children's home lives. Please rethink your decisions and rescind this, and take into account how all the students feel about this matter, and realize that we too are human beings with feelings and thoughts of our own. It doesn't matter how young we are, we know what we are talking about as the student body. Thank you.
I just need to point out it's been a half hour since we started this session. We'll give 3 more and then we're gonna have to close this.
Hello, everyone. My name is Maytel Bloy. I live in Middletown, New Jersey. I grew up in Middletown. I graduated from Middletown High School South in 2014, and I feel like enough's been said about, the policy, everything that's going on. And we decided to pass it next year now, but I'm just gonna outline like this experience I had when I was younger. Now, when I was going to high school, we had all the support groups, all of the advocacy we had, and I think it's wonderful. I think it's wonderful seeing what like kids in high school have now, but I didn't have that, and for me, the first place where I could be out was at college. I attended Green Mountain College, graduated with a bachelor's in psychology, and Green Mountain College was the first place I could be out as transgender, and when I would come home and I'd have dresses and skirts and all these different things, it was just a social transition at first. I would get into fights with my parents, screaming hours and hours, and one time, it was around this time of year, I was staying with some friends in Vermont, and I was facing this reality where I was going to go home to an environment where I wasn't accepted, and my family wasn't really willing to tolerate me living as who I was yet. So when it came time for me to go home, I didn't want to, so I just drove. I drove and drove all night, and then found myself on the King-Comingus Highway in New Hampshire. Has anyone ever been there? It's a long, windy pass that goes through the White Mountains. And I found myself there about 5 in the morning. I pulled over at a little parking lot that was on the side. That was there to allow people to enjoy the scenery, look at the sunrise. Watched the sunrise for a bit, decided I didn't want to go home. So I got back in my car. It was an old Volkswagen Jetta, pretty beat up. You know how there's a lot of granite up north, big rocks of granite. So I faced where there was no guardrail on the side of the road, big rock of granite. I slammed into it with my car as fast as I could, trying to kill myself. And I survived, thank God, and did manage to make my parents come around, and either way, I'm an adult, I have my own independence now, I make my own money, I pay my taxes. That kind of experience where you don't have the support, that could be any transgender kid, that could be any transgender person who's been in this room right now, who's in the school board, so, thank you.
Michelle Collins, Bangkok resident. I'm a school psychologist in the neighboring district and a mom of 2 children in Winthrop, one who is still at South. I also have transgender and LGBTQ relatives. It's unfortunate that this meeting wasn't moved to the auditorium. You refuse to let people participate in meetings virtually, saying they have to be here to speak. You allow meetings in the auditorium to endorse your anti-mask agenda, but you cap this meeting to the space of this small media center for a district as big as Middletown, knowing a crowd was coming. Very cowardly. It was hard to follow. Did any board members actually oppose the transgender change?
I did.
Thank you for that.
record that each of you are aware that LGBTQ youth are at the highest risk of suicide. Joe Minuis, Leonora Caminiti, Barry Heffernan, Joe Fitzgerald, Frank Capone, Jacqueline Tobacco, Kate Farley, and Gary Tolp. You will have blood on your hands should a trans student take their life because of the repercussions of this political agenda. Suicide in Middletown. You want to make it another one? You want to make it 3 and 4? I have many questions. Why is the BOE president making rounds at BOE meetings across the state and favoring the same agenda and pushing things on social media? Will our taxpayer money be spent on lawsuits from this policy change? What will the procedure be if the student asks the staff member not to tell their parents? Will students be warned of this outing before they confide in staff members? Why would a vulnerable student ever seek further support from their school when their rights and trusts have been violated in this manner? Will Middletown staff jobs be at risk if they don't go along with this? Because as a school psychologist, this is against my ethical boundaries. People wonder why so many good teachers and support staff are leaving this profession. Speaking of which, thank you, Mary Ellen Walker, for your years of service to our district. Why is the BOE placing you on administrative leave to the tune of over $100,000 until your resignation date of December 31st? Why are we paying 2 people for the job of superintendent for 6 months? I yield my time, thank you.
I'm a resident of Freehold. However, I am a teacher in the neighboring town of Tinton Falls, and I also have relatives who live in Middletown and attend this school. As we know, this amendment to the policy that you just voted on directly affects trans students and parents of trans kids. However, changing the state policy shows me that the board never took the time to sit down with Middletown parents of trans kids or learn from trans adults or gender-affirming therapists or any reputable organizations such as PFLAG, Garden State Equality, or the Pride Center of New Jersey to gain a comprehensive understanding of trans issues when amending a policy that literally affects trans kids. We live in a world filled with misinformation, disinformation, and political divides specifically regarding trans issues. To not properly tap into the trans community to gain accurate information when making a policy that affects the trans community is mind-blowing to me and grossly irresponsible. Please keep in mind that if a child already feels comfortable in their own home and their parents have created that safe space for them, that child is naturally going to come out to them first when they are ready. If a child is coming out to a staff member first, it is because they either need time or they don't feel safe having the conversation with their parents yet. They are counting on staff for help. They need help talking it through, they need resources, they need trust. This way, when the timing is right for them and their confidence is built up and the resources are in place, they can feel comfortable enough having that difficult conversation with their parents. Coming out is an extremely personal process and it takes tons of courage, and each trans student must do it in their own time. If that deeply personal moment of courage is stolen from them, it can severely impact their mental health because they weren't ready. Children have their own autonomy and they know who they are better than someone telling them who they are or who they should be. I am not trans, but I have trans family members. However, I am gay, and I can definitely speak to what the coming out process is like. I always knew I was gay, but I wasn't ready to tell my family. It took until I was in my early 20s to muster up the strength to seek support. I reached out to the Pride Center of New Jersey to gain that support, and I began to build up my confidence and resources to be prepared to have that difficult conversation with my parents, who luckily turned out to be fully accepting and wonderful. Granted, I was an adult when I came out, but I know for sure that if I had been a student and confided in a staff member, and that staff member was required to call my parents before I was mentally ready to tell them, I can tell you with 100% certainty that I would have ended my life. And I know this because it was something I was already considering as my backup plan if things got out of my hands prematurely. I definitely could have handled that as a child. And you never know how parents are going to react, so you can't count on the provision you have added of refraining from telling if there's documented evidence that doing so would cause harm. You only know if there's going to be harm after the child is outed. The most picture-perfect families are notorious for losing their trans child to suicide. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. That was our last public comment. I now wish to have a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Is there an opportunity for
Discussion?
last comment?
All in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Have a good night, everyone.
Just